The war horn's echo had barely faded from the mountain passes when Grishka realized her clan expected her to kill the human farmer they had found hiding in the grain storehouse. She stood in the center of the war council circle, her green fingers curled into fists at her sides, watching the elders debate the stranger's fate with the casual detachment reserved for discussing livestock. The human knelt between two guards, his hands bound behind his back, dirt streaking his plain linen shirt and worn trousers. He was perhaps 30 summers old, with shaggy brown hair that fell across his forehead and eyes the color of river stones after rain. Unlike the soldiers Grishka had fought, this one showed no defiance, no desperate bravado. He simply waited, his gaze fixed on the packed earth floor of the council tent. He was found on Stonefang land, her Uncle Throck growled, his massive frame casting shadows across the gathered orcs. During wartime, that makes him a spy for the Ironwood humans. I saw no weapons, Grishka said, keeping her voice steady despite the hammering of her heart. Only farming tools, a sickle, a water skin. Even rats carry no swords, her cousin Marga spat. It does not make them welcome in our grain stores. The human finally lifted his head. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but clear, carrying none of the tremor Grishka expected. I am not a spy. I am not a soldier. I am Owen Lawson, and I farm the southern valley where the two rivers meet. I came seeking shelter from the fighting, nothing more. Throck's laugh was harsh. The southern valley, Ironwood territory, you admit you serve our enemies. I serve no one but my land, Owen said simply. I pay taxes to whoever controls the road, but I fight for no clan and carry no banner. I want no part of your war. Grishka studied him more carefully then. Most humans confronted by orc warriors either begged for mercy or hurled insults born of fear and hatred. This Owen did neither. He met their eyes when he spoke, showing respect without groveling, and his words had the weight of truth behind them. She had learned during her 23 years to recognize when someone was lying, and this human seemed incapable of deception. The Ironwood clan killed my brother, Marga said, her voice dropping to something cold and dangerous. They burned our northern settlement. Why should we show mercy to any human who claims their land? Because I claim no land but my own small farm, Owen replied. And I grieve for your brother, though my grief means nothing to you. I grieve for all the dead on both sides. I grieve for the waste of it. The tent fell silent. Grishka felt the weight of that silence pressing down on her shoulders like stones. She was a warrior, trained since childhood in the arts of combat and tactics, and she understood the logic of war even if she had never loved it. But she also understood something her clan had forgotten in their generation's long feud with the Ironwood humans. Not every enemy was a warrior. Not every death served honor. Let me take responsibility for him, she heard herself say. Every eye in the tent turned to her. Throck's brow ridges lowered in confusion. What? Give him to me as a prisoner, Grishka said, forcing herself to stand straighter. I will ensure he causes no trouble. I will watch him, guard him, and if he proves to be a spy, I will execute him myself. But if he is truly just a farmer seeking shelter, then killing him serves no purpose but cruelty. You grow soft, Marga said. This is not how warriors think. No, Grishka agreed. It is how leaders think. We are not animals who kill every stranger who crosses our path. If we become that, then the humans are right about us. Throck was silent for a long moment, his dark eyes searching Grishka's face. She was his brother's daughter, and he had trained her himself after her father died in battle 10 years ago. He knew her strength and her skill, but he also knew her tendency toward mercy, which he considered her greatest weakness. Finally, he grunted. Very well. The human is your responsibility. Keep him confined to your dwelling. If he escapes or causes any harm, you will answer for it with your life." Grishka bowed her head. "Understood." They cut Owen's bonds and transferred him to her custody without ceremony. She led him through the camp as dusk settled over the mountains, aware of the hostile stares following them. The Stonefang clan had suffered greatly in recent months. The Ironwood humans had superior steel and greater numbers, and only the treacherous mountain terrain kept the orcs from being overrun entirely. Every warrior here had lost someone to the war. Grishka felt their judgment like arrows in her back. Her dwelling was a stone and timber structure built against the mountainside, small but sturdy, with a main room, a sleeping alcove, and a storage cellar dug into the rock. She gestured for Owen to enter ahead of her, then barred the door from inside. "Sit," she said, pointing to the bench near the hearth. Owen sat without argument, watching as she built up the fire. The flames caught and spread, casting warm light across the rough-hewn furniture and the weapons hanging on the walls. Grishka fetched bread and dried meat from her stores, along with a pitcher of water, and set them on the table. "Eat," she said. "Why did you do that?" Owen asked. "In the council tent. Why defend me?" Grishka settled into the chair across from him, studying his face in the firelight. His features were strong but not harsh, weathered by sun and wind in the way of those who worked the land. There was something in his eyes that reminded her of her father, a kind of quiet strength that needed no sword to prove itself. "Because I am tired of pointless killing," she said finally. "And you do not have the eyes of a liar." Owen picked up a piece of bread, breaking it slowly between his fingers. "I spoke the truth. I want nothing to do with this war. I never have." "Then why are you here? The fighting is 3 days' journey from the southern valley." "The fighting came to me," Owen said quietly. 2 weeks ago, an Ironwood patrol camped on my land. They took my stores, slaughtered my livestock for their cook fires. When I protested, they beat me and said I should be grateful they did not burn my house. Then, 4 days ago, a Stonefang raiding party came through. They saw the Ironwood banners the soldiers had left behind and assumed I had sheltered them willingly. They would have killed me if I had not fled. He ate some of the bread mechanically, as though he had forgotten the taste of food. "I have nowhere to go. My farm is destroyed, my animals dead or scattered. I came to the mountains hoping to find some cave or abandoned shepherd's hut where I could wait out the war. Instead, I found your grain store." "And now you are a prisoner," Grishka said. "Yes." Owen met her eyes. "But I am alive, which is more than I expected when your warriors found me. So I thank you for that, even if it only delays the inevitable." "It is not inevitable," Grishka said sharply. "I gave my word to watch you. If you cause no trouble, you will not be harmed. And when the war ends." "What then?" Grishka had no answer for that. The war between Stonefang and Ironwood had raged for generations, fed by old grievances and new atrocities in an endless cycle. Neither side remembered who struck the first blow anymore. Both sides claimed the other were monsters. She could not imagine peace, could barely envision a future where orc and human might coexist. "I do not know," she admitted, "but I will not kill an innocent man simply because my clan demands it. That much I can promise." Owen nodded slowly, something shifting in his expression. "Not quite trust, but perhaps the beginning of it. Then I will cause no trouble. You have my word." They finished the meal in silence. Grishka showed Owen where he could sleep, giving him blankets and a pallet in the corner of the main room. She would sleep in the alcove with her door partially open, alert for any movement. Not that she truly believed he would try to escape. Where would he go? The mountains were treacherous even for those who knew them well, and winter was coming. He would freeze or starve within days. As she lay in her bed that night, listening to the wind howl through the peaks, Grishka wondered what she had gotten herself into. Taking responsibility for a human prisoner was strange enough, but something about Owen unsettled her in ways she could not name. Perhaps it was his calm acceptance of his fate. Perhaps it was the sadness in his eyes when he spoke of his destroyed farm. Or perhaps it was simply that she had never met a human who seemed so fundamentally decent, so at odds with everything her clan believed about their enemies. She fell asleep thinking about the southern valley where two rivers met, and what it might be like to tend land instead of tending weapons. The next morning brought rain, cold and relentless, turning the camp's pathways to mud. Grishka woke to find Owen already awake, sitting on his pallet with his knees drawn up, staring at nothing. She rose and restarted the fire, then prepared a simple breakfast of porridge and weak tea. "Can you cook?" she asked as they ate. Owen looked surprised by the question. "Yes. I lived alone for 5 years. I learned by necessity." "Good. Then you can help prepare our meals. I am a warrior, not a cook. Everything I make tastes like leather." A ghost of a smile crossed Owen's face. "I think I can manage better than leather." It was a small thing, but it established a pattern. Grishka could not simply keep Owen locked in her dwelling like a caged animal. She had to maintain her duties as a warrior, which meant training, patrols, and council meetings. She needed him occupied, useful, less of a prisoner and more of a... She was not sure what. A guest seemed too generous. A servant felt wrong. Finally, she settled on something like a reluctant companion. Over the following days, they fell into a routine. Owen cooked, mended things that needed mending, and kept the dwelling clean. Grishka continued her warrior duties, returning each evening to find warm food and a tended fire. They spoke little at first, their conversations limited to practical matters, but slowly, inevitably, the silence between them grew more comfortable. A week after his capture, Grishka returned from patrol to find Owen examining her weapons with obvious interest. He had not touched them, she noted, merely studying them where they hung on the wall. "You know how to fight?" she asked, startling him. "No," Owen admitted. "I know how to plow a field and how to coax grain from reluctant soil. I know which stars guide travelers home and how to read weather in the clouds, but I never learned the sword. Most humans carry at least a knife. I did. The ironwood soldiers took it." He turned to face her fully. "I am not a warrior, Grishka. I never wanted to be. Even as a boy, when other children played at battles, I preferred helping in the fields. My father said I had farmer's blood, that the land called to me stronger than glory ever could." "There is no shame in that," Grishka said, surprising herself. "Warriors are necessary, but so are those who grow food. Perhaps more necessary since armies cannot march on empty bellies." Owen's expression softened. "Your clan does not seem to share that view." "My clan has been at war so long, they have forgotten there are other ways to live." Grishka set down her weapons and began removing her armor. "They see only enemies and allies, nothing in between." "And you," Grishka paused, considering. "I see a world more complicated than that, but I am alone in this, I think." "Not alone," Owen said quietly. "I see it too. A world where orc and human need not be enemies, where the land matters more than the bloodlines of those who tend it." Their eyes met across the room, and Grishka felt something shift in her chest, a strange warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. She looked away first, busying herself with hanging up her armor. "Tell me about your farm," she said, needing to break the sudden tension. Owen's face lit up in a way she had never seen before. "It sits in the valley basin where the Clearwater and Stonebrook rivers converge. The soil is rich there, fed by the river's silt. I grew wheat and barley mostly, but also kept a vegetable garden. Carrots, turnips, beans. I had 12 chickens, 3 goats, and one extremely stubborn cow who hated me but gave good milk." Grishka found herself smiling despite herself. Why did the cow hate you? I never discovered the reason. From the day I bought her, she treated me with complete disdain. She would only allow me to milk her if I sang to her. You sang to your cow, badly, Owen admitted, and now there was definitely amusement in his voice. I cannot carry a tune to save my life. But Bessie did not care about quality, only effort. So I sang every morning and evening, horrible off-key songs, and she tolerated my presence. The image of this serious, quiet man singing to a judgmental cow was so absurd that Grishka laughed, a real laugh that surprised them both. Owen smiled in response, and for a moment, they were not orc and human, prisoner and captor, but simply two people sharing an absurd story. I would like to have seen that, Grishka said. Owen's smile faded into something more wistful. I would like to see it again myself, but Bessie is gone now, along with everything else. The mood shifted, sobering. Grishka felt a pang of sympathy for this man who had lost his whole life to a war he wanted no part of. She knew that pain. She had lost her father, her mother, countless friends and clan members to the endless fighting, but at least she still had her people, her purpose. Owen had nothing. Tell me more, she said gently. Tell me about the valley. So he did. As the rain drummed against the roof and the fire crackled in the hearth, Owen painted pictures with his words. He described the way morning mist rose from the rivers, how the wheat fields turned golden in summer sun, the particular shade of blue the sky took on before harvest storms. He spoke of seasons and cycles, of planting and reaping, of the deep satisfaction in working with the land rather than against it. Grishka listened, fascinated. She had spent her entire life in these harsh mountains, training for battle, learning war strategy and combat techniques. The world Owen described seemed impossibly peaceful, almost fantastical, yet she heard the truth in every word, the genuine love he had for his lost farm. You will rebuild, she found herself saying. When the war ends, you will return and rebuild. Will I? Owen asked. Even if I survive, even if the war ends, what is there to return to? The house is likely burned by now. The fields will have gone to seed. It would take years to restore what was destroyed in days. Then you take years, Grishka said firmly. You are young enough. You have the knowledge and the will, that is more than many have. Owen looked at her for a long moment. You have more faith in my future than I do. Someone must. He smiled again, smaller this time but no less genuine. Thank you, for the food, the shelter, the kindness. You did not have to do any of this. No, Grishka agreed, but I wanted to. I am tired of being only a warrior, tired of death being the only answer we offer. They talked late into the night, and when they finally sought their beds, Grishka lay awake thinking about valleys where rivers met and the sound of off-key singing at dawn. The second week of Owen's captivity brought the first snow, early even for the mountains. Grishka woke to find white drifts piled against her door and frost coating the inside of her windows. She built up the fire to a roar while Owen prepared hot tea and toasted bread spread with honey from Grishka's stores. Winter comes early this year, she observed, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. The war will slow, Owen said. No army marches well through mountain snow. He was right. By midday, Throck had called off all but essential patrols. The clan would hunker down for the worst of the winter, maintaining defenses but launching no new attacks. It was the way of mountain warfare, familiar to Grishka from years of experience. What was not familiar was being snowbound with a human companion. As the days shortened and the snow piled higher, Grishka found herself spending more time in Owen's company. They had no choice, really, trapped together in the small dwelling, but what had started as obligation gradually became something else. Owen proved to be an excellent cook, coaxing flavors from their simple ingredients that Grishka had never managed. He was also surprisingly good company. He knew stories from his travels as a young man before he had settled on his farm, tales of strange villages and odd customs that made her laugh. In return, she told him about orc traditions, about the honor codes and clan histories that shaped her people's lives. "We are not so different," Owen observed one evening as they shared mulled wine near the fire. "Orcs and humans. We both value honor, family, home. We both bleed when cut and grieve when we lose those we love." "Tell that to my uncle," Grishka said with a bitter laugh. "He sees humans as little better than beasts." "And humans say the same of orcs," Owen replied. "I grew up hearing stories of green-skinned monsters who ate children and burned villages for sport. None of it was true, but it did not matter. The stories served their purpose, making orcs into something less than people, something that could be killed without guilt." "Did you believe the stories?" Owen was quiet for a moment, staring into his wine. "I did when I was young. Everyone around me believed, so I believed too. But as I grew older, I started questioning. If orcs were truly mindless monsters, why did they have languages, customs, organized societies? Why did they mourn their dead and protect their young? Monsters do not do those things. People do." "When did you stop believing?" Grishka asked. "I met an orc woman," Owen said simply. "I was 16, helping my father transport grain to market. Our cart broke a wheel on a mountain road and we were stranded. A stone-fang orc came upon us, a woman traveling alone. My father reached for his knife, ready to fight, but she just looked at our broken cart and sighed. Then she helped us fix it." He smiled at the memory. "She barely spoke our language and we knew none of hers, but she stayed for 2 hours, helping us replace the wheel and secure the load. When we tried to pay her, she refused. She just nodded and continued on her way. My father never spoke of it afterward, as though acknowledging her kindness would shatter something he needed to believe. But I never forgot. That woman was not a monster. She was just a person who chose to help strangers in need." Grishka felt something tighten in her chest. Perhaps that woman helped because she remembered that humans and orcs are not so different after all. "Perhaps," Owen agreed. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and Grishka found she could not look away. His river-stone eyes held warmth and understanding, and something else she did not want to name. "You are not what I expected," Owen said softly. "When your warriors captured me, I thought I would die. Instead, I found someone who chose mercy over convenience, kindness over cruelty. You could have let them kill me. It would have been easier." "Easy is not always right," Grishka replied, her voice coming out rougher than intended. "No," Owen agreed. "It is not." The moment stretched between them, charged with something Grishka had no experience navigating. She was a warrior, trained in combat and tactics, but this was entirely different territory. The warmth spreading through her had nothing to do with the fire and everything to do with the way Owen was looking at her, as though she was something precious and unexpected. She stood abruptly, breaking the spell. "It is late. We should sleep." Owen did not argue, but she felt his eyes on her as she retreated to her alcove. She lay in the darkness, heart hammering, trying to understand what was happening to her. She had known attraction before, had even taken lovers among her clan, but this felt different, deeper, more dangerous. He was human. She was orc. Her clan would never accept it. His people would revile them both. There was no future in whatever this was becoming. She needed to remember that, needed to guard herself against feelings that could only lead to pain. But in the morning, when she found Owen already awake and brewing tea with a soft smile for her, she felt her carefully constructed walls begin to crack. The winter deepened, and with it, the strange domesticity that had grown between them. Grishka tried to maintain emotional distance, reminding herself daily of all the reasons this was impossible, but Owen made it so terribly difficult. He was unfailingly kind, thoughtful in small ways that touched her more deeply than grand gestures ever could. He noticed when she was tired and ensured her favorite foods appeared at dinner. He mended her torn clothing without being asked. He listened when she needed to talk and gave her silence when she needed space. Worse, he treated her not as some exotic creature to be feared or fetishized, but simply as a person. He asked about her childhood, her dreams, her opinions on everything from weather to warfare. He seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts, arguing when he disagreed but never dismissing her perspective. And Grishka found herself opening to him in ways she never had with her own clan. With Owen, she did not have to be the perfect warrior, the stoic fighter who never showed weakness. She could admit her doubts about the war, her growing disgust with the endless cycle of violence. She could talk about missing her father, about the weight of expectations she carried. "My father was the greatest warrior our clan had seen in generations," she told Owen one night as they sat by the fire. "He could defeat any opponent, lead any battle. When he died, everyone expected me to fill that void, to be exactly like him. But you are not him," Owen said. "No. I am a good fighter, skilled enough, but I do not have his love for battle. I fight because I must, because it is my duty, but I take no joy in it. Sometimes I think about what I would do if the war ended, if I could choose any life. What would you choose?" Grishka had never admitted this to anyone, had barely admitted it to herself. But in the warm firelight, with Owen's gentle attention on her, the words spilled out. "I would want land. A place to build something lasting, not a fort or a war camp, but a home. I would want to grow things, raise animals, watch seasons change for reasons other than warfare." She laughed, embarrassed. "I know it sounds foolish. I am a warrior. I know nothing of farming." "It is not foolish," Owen said firmly. "It is human, or orc. It is the desire every person has, I think, to create rather than destroy, to build rather than tear down." He leaned forward, his expression earnest. "And you could learn. Farming is not mysterious. It is work, certainly, and it requires patience and knowledge, but anyone can learn it if they are willing. I could teach you." Grishka's breath caught. The casual way he said it, as though teaching her to farm was a reasonable possibility, as though they might have a future where such things mattered. "You could, of course. You are intelligent and strong. You would be a natural. I can see you now, cursing at stubborn soil and arguing with chickens." Despite herself, Grishka laughed. "Arguing with chickens. Chickens are remarkably opinionated creatures," Owen said with complete seriousness. "You have to establish dominance early or they will rule your life." "I could defeat a chicken," Grishka said mock seriously. "I am a trained warrior. You say that now, but you have never met a truly determined hen." They dissolved into laughter, and Grishka felt something in her chest crack wide open. This, she thought. This was what she had been missing her entire life. Not romance necessarily, though she was beginning to suspect that was part of it, but this ease, this comfort with another person. The ability to be wholly herself without armor or pretense. When the laughter faded, Owen was still looking at her with such warmth that Grishka felt heat rise to her cheeks. "What?" she asked. "I was just thinking how beautiful you look when you smile," Owen said quietly. "You should do it more often." Grishka froze. Beautiful. He thought she was beautiful, not strong or fierce or intimidating, but beautiful. "I am an orc," she said stupidly. "I know," Owen replied. "And you are beautiful. Your eyes are like amber in sunlight. Your smile could melt stone. And when you laugh, really laugh, it is the most wonderful sound I have ever heard." "Owen," she whispered, not sure if it was a warning or a plea. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and touched her hand where it rested on her knee. His fingers were warm, calloused from years of farm work, and they fit against hers like they belonged there. "I know this is complicated," he said. "I know there are 1,000 reasons why this is impossible, but I cannot stop how I feel. Since the day you defended me in that council tent, since you chose mercy over convenience, I have been falling for you. And I think, perhaps, you feel the same." Grishka should deny it. Should pull her hand away and remind him that she was his captor, that they were from different species, that her clan would exile her and his people would revile them both. She should do many things. Instead, she turned her hand over and laced her fingers through his. "Yes," she whispered. "I feel the same, and it terrifies me." Owen smiled, and it was like sunrise after a long night. "It terrifies me too, but I think it might be worth the fear." He was right, Grishka thought as he lifted her hand to his lips and pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles. Whatever this was, whatever happened, it was worth the fear. That night, they did not retreat to separate sleeping spaces. They sat together by the fire, hands joined, talking in low voices about dreams and fears and impossible futures. When exhaustion finally claimed them, Grishka woke to find herself curled against Owen's chest, his arms wrapped around her, and felt safer than she had in years. The thaw was still weeks away, but spring had already begun in her heart. Their relationship shifted after that night, deepening in ways both wonderful and terrifying. They did not hide their affection from each other anymore, though they were careful to maintain appearances when anyone from the clan visited. Grishka's duties kept her busy during the days, but her nights belonged to Owen, and she treasured every moment. They shared meals and stories, dreams and quiet companionship. Owen taught her about farming, drawing diagrams in the dirt floor to show crop rotation and irrigation techniques. Grishka taught him basic self-defense, not to make him a warrior but to give him tools to protect himself. "If you are grabbed from behind," she instructed, positioning herself behind him and wrapping her arms around his chest, "you need to drop your weight and twist." Owen attempted the move, but his execution was clumsy. They tumbled to the floor in a tangle of limbs, laughing. Grishka ended up sprawled across his chest, looking down into his smiling face. "I think I need more practice," Owen said, his hands coming to rest on her waist. "I think you are using this as an excuse to get close to me," Grishka replied. "Is it working?" Instead of answering, she kissed him. It was not their first kiss, but it still sent shivers through her. Owen kissed like he did everything else, with patience and attention and genuine care. He made her feel cherished, desired, seen in ways she had never experienced. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Owen touched her face gently. "I love you," he said. "I know it is too soon, too complicated, too everything, but I love you, Grishka. I need you to know that." Grishka's eyes burned. No one had said those words to her since her father died. No one had looked at her the way Owen did, like she was the answer to every question he had never known to ask. "I love you too," she whispered. "Against all sense and reason, I love you." They made love that night, slowly and tenderly, learning each other's bodies with the same patience they had used to learn each other's hearts. Owen traced the scars on her green skin like they were precious maps, and Grishka marveled at his gentleness, at the way he made her feel powerful and vulnerable all at once. Afterward, lying in her bed with Owen's head on her shoulder, Grishka allowed herself to imagine a different future. One where they could be together openly, where orc and human could love without fear of persecution. It seemed like an impossible dream, but for the first time in her life, she wanted to fight for something other than victory. She wanted to fight for peace, for the chance to build the life Owen had described. When the war ends, she said quietly, we will go to your valley. We will rebuild your farm together. Owen lifted his head to look at her. You would leave your clan, for you? Yes. The certainty in her voice surprised even her. I have given my clan 23 years of service. I have bled for them, killed for them, lost everything that mattered for their cause. Perhaps it is time I chose something for myself. They will not let you go easily, Owen said. No, Grishka agreed. But I am the best warrior they have. If I demand to be released from service, if I claim my right to retire from warfare, they cannot refuse without dishonoring themselves. And if they do refuse, then we will leave anyway, Grishka said fiercely. I am done sacrificing my life for a war that serves no purpose but feeding old grudges. I want more than this, Owen. I want what you described. A home, land to tend, a life built on creation instead of destruction. I want a future with you. Owen kissed her again, deep and desperate. Then we will have it. Somehow we will have it. They held each other as the fire burned low and snow continued to fall outside. Two people from different worlds choosing to believe in something better. But the world, as it often does, had other plans. The attack came on a morning 3 weeks later. Grishka woke to the sound of horns, the alarm that meant enemies were approaching the camp. She was on her feet instantly, reaching for her armor. Stay inside, she ordered Owen as she dressed rapidly. Bar the door behind me and do not open it for anyone but me. Do you understand? What is happening? Owen asked, already moving to help her with the complicated armor straps. Ironwood forces, Grishka said grimly. They must have pushed through the snow. Stay hidden, stay quiet. If anyone asks, you are my servant, nothing more. Do not let them see what you mean to me. She kissed him once, hard and fast, then was out the door before he could respond. The camp was organized chaos, warriors arming themselves and racing to defensive positions. Grishka found Throck near the main gates, his face grim. How many? She demanded. At least 200, Throck replied. Well armed, well supplied. They mean to take the camp. We have barely 100 fighters, Grishka said. We cannot hold against those numbers. We fight anyway, Throck growled. We are Stonefang. We do not surrender. Grishka bit back her protest. Pride would get them all killed, but she knew better than to argue now. Instead, she took her position on the eastern wall and prepared to defend her home. The battle was brutal and chaotic. The Ironwood forces were indeed well supplied, with siege ladders and grappling hooks that allowed them to scale the defensive walls. Grishka fought with desperate efficiency, her blades singing through the cold air as she defended her position. Around her, orcs fell to human steel and humans fell to orc fury, and the snow turned red with mingled blood. Hours passed in a blur of violence. Grishka lost track of time, focused only on the next enemy, the next threat. But slowly, inevitably, the Stonefang forces were pushed back. There were simply too many Ironwood soldiers, too well equipped and too determined. By midday, the defensive walls had fallen and fighting had moved into the camp itself. Grishka found herself separated from the main force, defending a narrow passage between stone buildings against 3 human soldiers. She killed 2, but took a sword slash to her side that burned like fire. The 3rd soldier raised his weapon for a killing blow. Then Owen was there, no weapon in his hands but a heavy iron cooking pot that he brought down on the soldier's helmeted head with a resounding clang. The man crumpled, unconscious, and Owen grabbed Grishka as she swayed. I told you to stay hidden, she gasped, pressing her hand to her bleeding side. And let you die. Never. Owen supported her weight, his face pale but determined. We need to get you somewhere safe. There is nowhere safe, Grishka said, but she let him guide her anyway. They made it to her dwelling just as a section of the camp's outer wall collapsed entirely. Through the gap, Grishka could see more ironwood soldiers pouring in, an endless tide of them. Inside, Owen barred the door and turned to examine her wound. "Let me see." Grishka allowed him to remove her armor and lift her shirt. The wound was deep but not fatal, bleeding heavily but missing anything vital. Owen found clean cloth and pressed it firmly to her side. "Hold this," he instructed, and she obeyed, watching as he moved around the small dwelling with focused efficiency. He gathered supplies, weapons, anything that might be useful, stuffing them into a pack. "What are you doing?" Grishka asked. "We are leaving," Owen said firmly. "The camp is lost. If you stay, you die. So we are leaving right now, while there is still chaos to cover our escape." "I cannot abandon my clan," Grishka protested, even as part of her recognized the truth in his words. "Your clan is already abandoned," Owen said, kneeling before her. His hands found hers, gripping tight. "Look at me, Grishka, look at me and listen. You owe them nothing. You have given them everything, and they would see you dead before they would see you happy. Choose yourself, choose us, choose life." Outside, the sounds of battle raged. Grishka could hear screams, the clash of weapons, the crackle of fire. Her clan was dying out there, falling to ironwood steel. She should be with them, fighting to the last breath as honor demanded. But what honor was there in dying for a lost cause? What purpose did it serve to throw her life away when she could live, could build something better? "Where would we go?" she asked. "The Southern Valley," Owen said immediately. "It is ironwood territory, but with the main army here it will be undefended. We can reach my farm, rebuild it, make a life there before anyone notices. They will come looking for me, maybe, but by the time they do, the war might be over. Stonefang cannot recover from this defeat, and without Stonefang to fight, Ironwood will have no enemy." He squeezed her hands. "This could be the end of it, Grishka, the end of the war. We could be the beginning of something new." Grishka looked into his river-stone eyes and saw her future. Not glory or honor in the traditional sense, but something infinitely more valuable. Love, peace, a life worth living. "Help me up," she said. Owen smiled, brilliant and relieved, and helped her to her feet. They gathered what supplies they could carry. Then Owen cracked the door to check outside. The fighting had moved away from this section of camp, drawn toward the main defensive positions. "Now," Owen said, and they ran. They made it out of the camp through a gap in the southern wall, moving as quickly as Grishka's injury allowed. Behind them, smoke rose into the gray sky, and the sounds of battle echoed through the mountains. Grishka did not look back. She kept her eyes forward, on Owen's steady presence ahead of her, on the future they were running toward. They traveled for 3 days through the mountains, moving cautiously to avoid ironwood patrols. Grishka's wound slowed them but did not stop them. Owen proved surprisingly capable in the wilderness, finding shelter and clean water, even managing to snare rabbits for food. He tended Grishka's injury with the same patience he brought to everything, changing bandages and watching for infection. On the 4th day, they descended from the mountains into the southern valley. Grishka saw it first from a high ridge, the place Owen had described with such love. 2 rivers met in a broad basin, their waters clear and swift. Fields stretched in all directions, some abandoned to winter but others showing signs of life. And there, near the river confluence, stood the remains of a farmstead. Owen stopped beside her, his face full of complicated emotions. His house was indeed damaged, part of the roof collapsed and the walls blackened by fire. But the structure still stood and the land around it was untouched, waiting patiently for someone to tend it again. "Home," Owen said softly, "or what is left of it." "Then we rebuild," Grishka said, taking his hand. "We make it a home again." They descended into the valley as the sun broke through the clouds, painting everything gold. It felt like an omen, a promise of better things to come. The first weeks were hard. They had little beyond what they had carried from the mountains, and the farmhouse required extensive repairs before it was truly livable. But they worked together, and slowly, the place took shape. Owen's knowledge and Grishka's strength proved a powerful combination. They replaced the collapsed section of roof, patched walls, cleared debris. Grishka learned to mix mortar and cut timber, while Owen designed the repairs with an eye toward efficiency. Her wound healed cleanly, thanks to Owen's careful tending. Within 2 weeks, she was back to full strength and threw herself into the work with determination. There was something deeply satisfying about building instead of destroying, about creating something lasting with her own hands. As winter loosened its grip and early spring arrived, they began preparing the fields for planting. Owen taught Grishka everything, from testing soil to plotting crop rows. She proved an eager student, and if she sometimes cursed at stubborn rocks or uncooperative weeds, Owen only smiled and reminded her that farming required patience. You cannot intimidate plants into growing. He teased one afternoon as Grishka glared at a garden plot that refused to drain properly. "I could try," Grishka muttered, but she followed his instructions to build up the bed and improve drainage. They found 4 of Owen's chickens living wild in the overgrown fields, along with one of his goats. No sign of Bessie the cow, which Owen mourned, but the recovered animals were a start. Grishka learned to collect eggs and milk the goat, tasks she approached with the same intensity she had once brought to weapons training. The chickens, as Owen had predicted, were opinionated creatures. The dominant hen, whom Grishka named Sergeant for her bossy demeanor, established a complicated hierarchy that included pecking order and specific roosting preferences. Grishka found herself negotiating with poultry in a way that would have horrified her warrior clan. "I have fought in 20 battles," she told Sergeant one morning, "and you still intimidate me more than most enemies." Sergeant clucked dismissively and pecked at Grishka's boot, unimpressed. Owen, watching from the doorway, laughed until tears ran down his face. But it was not all work and laughter. They both knew they were living on borrowed time, that eventually someone would come looking. Whether Stonefang seeking their lost warrior or Ironwood investigating the reoccupied farm, they could not hide forever. The reckoning came on a warm spring morning 2 months after their arrival. Grishka was working in the fields when she heard riders approaching. She straightened, shading her eyes against the sun, and counted 6 horses bearing Ironwood banners. Owen appeared at her side, his face tense. "We knew this would happen." "Stay behind me," Grishka said, positioning herself between Owen and the approaching riders. The soldiers drew to a halt a respectful distance away. Their leader, a grizzled man with gray threading his beard, studied them with narrowed eyes. "This farm was reported abandoned," he said. "Explain your presence here." "This is my farm," Owen said, stepping forward despite Grishka's protective stance. "Owen Lawson. I fled the fighting months ago but have returned to rebuild." The soldier's gaze moved to Grishka, taking in her green skin and orc features. His hand moved to his sword. "And the orc, my partner," Owen said firmly before Grishka could speak. "She left her clan to seek peace. We are farmers, nothing more. We want no part of your war." "Your war is over," the soldier said. "Stonefang was broken. The survivors scattered into the deep mountains. Ironwood claims these lands now." He looked at Grishka with something that might have been grudging respect. "You are the warrior Grishka, yes, daughter of Throck the Breaker." "We have heard of you." "I was," Grishka said carefully. "I am a warrior no longer. I am a farmer," as he said. The soldier was quiet for a long moment, and Grishka braced herself for violence. But then, surprisingly, he nodded. "The war is over," he repeated. "Lord Ironwood has decreed that any who lay down weapons and pledge peace may remain on their lands unmolested. This includes orcs if they choose cooperation over conflict." Grishka felt Owen's hand find hers, squeezing tight. "We choose peace," she said. "We will farm these lands, pay whatever taxes are required, and cause no trouble." "Then you may stay," the soldier said. "But know that we will be watching. Any sign of hostility, any indication you are gathering forces or planning attacks, and we will respond with overwhelming force." "Am I understood?" "Perfectly," Owen said. The soldiers left, and Grishka released a breath she had not realized she was holding. Owen turned to her, his eyes bright. "They are letting us stay," he said, wonder in his voice. "We can actually do this, build a life here together without hiding." Grishka pulled him into her arms, holding him tight against her chest. "Yes," she whispered into his hair. "We can." That night they celebrated by cooking a proper meal with vegetables from their newly planted garden and sharing a bottle of wine Owen had found in his cellar, miraculously unbroken. They sat outside under the stars, watching the rivers flow in the distance. "I want to marry you," Owen said suddenly. Grishka turned to look at him. "What, marry you?" Owen repeated. He took her hand, his thumb stroking over her knuckles. "I know it is not traditional, that orcs and humans do not usually bond this way, but I want the world to know you are mine and I am yours. I want to build this life with you as my wife, not just my partner. Will you marry me, Grishka?" Grishka felt tears prick her eyes. In orc culture, marriage was different, more about clan alliances than individual choice. But she understood what Owen was offering. A commitment, a declaration, a choice to bind their lives together formally and completely. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "Yes, I will marry you." Owen kissed her then, deep and sweet and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, they were both smiling. "We will need to find someone to perform the ceremony," Owen said practically. "And we should invite the neighbors, establish ourselves as part of the community." "Do you think they will accept us?" Grishka asked. "An orc and a human. Some will not," Owen said honestly. "But enough will, I think. The war is over. People are tired of hatred. They want peace, want to rebuild their lives. We can be proof that it is possible, that old enemies can become something new." He was right, Grishka discovered over the following weeks. They visited neighboring farms, introducing themselves and offering help with spring planting. Some families were suspicious or openly hostile, but more than Grishka expected welcomed them. The war had taken its toll on everyone, human and orc alike. People were ready for something different. An elderly woman named Vera Chen, whose farm bordered theirs to the east, became their first real friend. She had lost her husband and 2 sons to the war and had no patience for continued hostilities. "If an orc and a human can work together," she said firmly when some of the other neighbors protested, "then maybe the rest of us can learn to do the same. I support them." Her endorsement carried weight and gradually acceptance spread, not universal but enough. Enough that when Owen and Grishka announced their intention to marry, several families offered to help with the preparations. They were married on a perfect summer day, with the rivers running high and the fields green with growing crops. A traveling priest performed the ceremony, one who had no qualms about joining different species in matrimony. Vera stood as witness, along with 3 other neighboring families who had come to accept the unusual couple. Grishka wore a simple dress of green linen that matched her skin tone, with wildflowers woven into her dark hair. Owen wore his best shirt and trousers, cleaned and mended for the occasion. They spoke their vows under an arbor Owen had built, promising to love and honor each other through all the seasons of their lives. When the priest pronounced them married and Owen kissed her, Grishka felt something settle deep in her chest. Peace, belonging, home. The celebration afterward was modest but joyful. Vera had baked bread, other neighbors brought preserves and honey, and Owen had prepared a feast from their farm's produce. They ate and drank and danced as the sun set over the valley, and for the first time in her life, Grishka understood what it meant to be truly happy. That night, lying in bed with her husband's arms around her, she thought about how far she had come. From the mountain warrior camp, where death was glory, to this peaceful valley, where life was the victory. From a woman who knew only battle to one who knew the satisfaction of coaxing life from soil. "What are you thinking?" Owen asked sleepily. "That I made the right choice," Grishka said. "That this here with you is worth more than any honor or glory my clan could have given me." "I love you," Owen murmured, kissing her shoulder. "I love you too," Grishka replied. "My husband." The word felt strange and wonderful on her tongue. Husband. She had a husband, a farm, a future full of possibility instead of violence. She fell asleep smiling, dreaming of harvests and seasons to come. The years that followed were not without challenges. Some neighbors never accepted them, and there were occasional incidents of harassment or vandalism. Twice, small groups of stone-fang orcs passing through the valley stopped at their farm, and Grishka had to turn away former clan members who begged her to rejoin the fight. "The war is over," she told them each time. "Go home. Build something instead of destroying. There is no honor in continuing to fight a battle that is already lost." Most left reluctantly but peacefully. One group, led by her cousin Marga, was more persistent. "You betrayed us," Marga spat, standing in their dooryard with 4 other warriors. "You abandoned your clan in their moment of greatest need, and for what? To play house with a human." "I chose life over death," Grishka replied calmly, very aware of Owen standing behind her on the porch. "I chose to build something lasting instead of dying for a cause that served no one." "If that is betrayal in your eyes, so be it. I am at peace with my choice." "You were the best of us," Marga said, and there was genuine grief in her voice. "You could have been a great leader. You could have brought glory to our clan." "I was never yours," Grishka said more gently. "I was always my own, and I have brought myself peace, which is worth more than all the glory in the world." Marga left without further argument, though the look she gave Grishka held more sorrow than anger. Grishka watched them go and felt no regret, only a distant sadness for people still trapped in old hatreds. But these difficult moments were vastly outweighed by the joy of their life together. The farm prospered under their combined efforts. Grishka proved to have a natural talent for animal husbandry, and their livestock grew to include not just chickens and goats but also pigs, more cows, and even a small flock of sheep. Owen focused on the crops, rotating fields and experimenting with different varieties, until they were producing more than enough to feed themselves and sell at market. They became fixtures at the local market, where Grishka's presence initially caused alarm but gradually became accepted and even welcomed. Her honest dealing and fair prices won over many who had been suspicious, and Owen's friendly nature helped smooth the way. They made friends, real friends beyond just Vera. A young couple, Victor and Violet Carter, moved to a nearby farm and bonded with them over shared struggles and triumphs of agricultural life. Victor had served briefly in the Ironwood Army and had no love for the war or those who perpetuated it. He and Owen became close friends, often trading labor and advice. In the 3rd year of their marriage, Grishka discovered she was pregnant. The news filled her with equal parts joy and terror. Orc-human children were rare but not unheard of, and she had no idea what to expect. Owen was thrilled, though equally nervous. Vera, who had served as a midwife in her younger years, took charge of the situation with brisk efficiency. Half-orc babies are larger than human but smaller than full orc, she informed them. The birth will be challenging but manageable. You will be fine, girl. Women have been having babies since the beginning of time. The pregnancy was indeed challenging. Grishka's orc constitution made her stronger than human mothers, but the baby's size caused her discomfort in the later months. Owen fussed over her constantly, bringing her special foods and making sure she rested, until Grishka finally threatened to throw a boot at him if he asked one more time if she was comfortable. "I am growing a child," she growled. "Comfort is not part of the process." But she appreciated his care, even if she would not admit it. Their daughter was born on a cold autumn evening, arriving with a lusty cry that echoed through the farmhouse. She was beautiful, with her father's river-stone eyes and her mother's green-tinted skin, a perfect blend of both parents. They named her Alara, after Owen's grandmother. Holding her daughter for the first time, Grishka felt overwhelmed with love so fierce it was almost frightening. This tiny being, half orc and half human, represented everything they had fought for. A future where such children could exist without shame, where love could bridge old divides. "She is perfect," Owen whispered, standing beside Grishka's bed and stroking Alara's downy hair. "Yes," Grishka agreed. "She is our future." Alara grew into a bright, curious child who captivated everyone she met. By the time she was 2, she was following Owen through the fields, helping with chores in the way of toddlers everywhere. By 4, she was collecting eggs from Sergeant and the other chickens, singing the off-key songs Owen had taught her. The valley community embraced her in ways that still surprised Grishka. Children accepted her instantly as one of their own. Adults who had been suspicious of Grishka softened in the face of Alara's innocent charm. She became a symbol of the new peace, proof that the future did not have to repeat the past's mistakes. When Alara was 5, Grishka and Owen had a son, whom they named Otto after Owen's father. Otto had more human features than his sister, but inherited his mother's strength and his father's gentle nature. The 2 children adored each other, playing together in the fields and helping with farm chores as they grew. The farm continued to prosper. They expanded their acreage, buying adjoining land from a farmer who had decided to retire. They built a larger barn and improved the house, adding rooms for their growing family. The work was hard, but it was good work, meaningful work that nourished rather than destroyed. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Owen surprised Grishka by taking her to the ridge where they had first seen the valley together. It was a warm summer evening, and the fields below were golden with ready-to-harvest wheat. "You ever regret it?" Owen asked, holding her hand as they looked out over the land they had built together. Leaving your clan, choosing this life, Grishka considered the question seriously. She thought of the warrior she had been, the battles she had fought, the honor she had sought. Then she thought of the life she had now. A husband who loved her completely, children who filled her days with laughter, land that responded to her care with abundance, friends who valued her for who she was rather than her skill with weapons. "Never," she said firmly. "Not for one moment. This life with you is worth more than every glory I might have won in battle. You gave me something I did not even know I wanted, peace, purpose beyond destruction, a future worth living." Owen pulled her close, kissing her temple. "You gave me the same. When I lost my farm, I thought I had lost everything. But you showed me I could rebuild, that the future could be better than the past. You gave me love and partnership and a family I cherish more than anything." They stood together as the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and reds. Below them, their children played in the yard, their laughter carrying on the evening breeze. Smoke rose from chimneys throughout the valley, marking homes where families were settling in for the night. "We did it," Grishka said softly. "We built the life we imagined." "Yes," Owen agreed. "And it is beautiful." They walked back down to the farm hand in hand, to the home they had created from ruins and hope. Alara ran to meet them, chattering about something Sargent had done, while Otto showed off a frog he had caught in the river. That night, after the children were in bed, Grishka and Owen sat on their porch watching the stars emerge. The rivers sang their eternal song, and somewhere in the distance, an owl called. The sounds of peace, Grishka thought, the music of a life well lived. "I love you," she told Owen, not for the first time and not for the last. "I love you too," he replied, pulling her close. "My warrior, my farmer, my wife." And in the quiet of that perfect evening, with the stars bright overhead and the valley at peace around them, Grishka knew that choosing love over war, hope over hatred, had been the bravest thing she had ever done. She had found her true battle, and it was not against enemies with swords but against fear and prejudice and the weight of old hatreds. She had won that battle not with violence but with patience, not with strength but with love, and the victory was sweeter than any she had ever known. Years continued to pass in the valley. Alara grew into a confident young woman who inherited her mother's strength and her father's gentle wisdom. She became a bridge between the remaining orc communities and the human settlements, using her mixed heritage to facilitate understanding and cooperation. Otto followed his father's path, becoming an even more skilled farmer who innovated techniques that increased yields throughout the region. Grishka and Owen grew older together, their hair graying but their love never diminishing. They expanded their farm into one of the most prosperous in the valley, not through exploitation but through hard work and intelligent stewardship of the land. They employed both orcs and humans, creating a place where species did not matter, only skill and dedication. The Stonefang and Ironwood conflict became history, something spoken of in past tense. New generations grew up knowing peace, unable to imagine the hatred that had once divided their parents and grandparents. Grishka and Owen's farm became a symbol of that peace, proof that former enemies could not only coexist, but thrive together. Vera lived to see Alara marry a kind human farmer from the northern valley, a wedding that brought together orcs and humans in celebration. The old woman passed peacefully in her sleep a month later, content that the world was healing. More mixed families appeared throughout the region as the years passed. What had once been scandalous became gradually more accepted. Grishka's choice, once seen as betrayal by her clan and madness by many humans, became inspiration for others who dared to love across the old divides. On their 20th anniversary, Owen commissioned a stone marker to be placed at the entrance to their farm. It reads simply, "From war we chose peace. From hatred we chose love. From death we chose life. May all who enter here find the same." Grishka cried when she saw it. Happy tears for the life they had built from ashes and determination. They celebrated that anniversary with a feast that brought together over 100 people, orcs and humans and mixed heritage families, all living proof that the old wars were truly over. They ate and drank and danced, and when the children asked Grishka to tell them about the old days, about the war, she chose her words carefully. "War is easy," she told them. "Hatred is easy. It takes no courage to destroy. But peace, love, building something lasting, that requires true bravery. Your parents and I, we chose the harder path. We chose to believe in a better future, even when everyone told us it was impossible. And look at you all, beautiful children of that choice. You are the proof that love is stronger than hate, that hope can overcome fear." The children listened with wide eyes, and Grishka saw understanding dawning in some of the older ones. They lived in peace because people had chosen to make peace. They could love freely because others had dared to love, despite consequences. That night, lying in bed with Owen's arms around her as they had lain together for 20 years, Grishka reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From the mountain war camp to this peaceful valley, from a warrior who knew only violence to a farmer who had learned to nurture life. "No regrets?" Owen asked sleepily as though reading her thoughts. "None," Grishka said firmly. "Everything I have, everything we built, it all started because I chose to defend one frightened human farmer in a council tent. Best decision I ever made." Owen chuckled, the sound rumbling through his chest. "I am rather glad you made it too." They drifted off to sleep, secure in each other and in the life they had created. Outside, the valley slept in peace. The rivers sang their eternal song, and the stars watched over a world learning, slowly but surely, to heal. In the morning, there would be fields to tend and animals to feed, children to guide and a community to nurture. There would be hard work and simple joys, laughter and the occasional struggle, all the beautiful mundane details of a life well lived. But tonight, there was only peace, love, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing they had chosen well. Against all odds and expectations, they had built something beautiful from the ruins of war. They had proven that old enemies could become beloved partners, that hatred could transform into love, that the future did not have to repeat the past's mistakes. Grishka had been a warrior, feared and respected for her skill in battle. But her greatest victory had nothing to do with swords or strategy. Her greatest victory was this: choosing love over war, hope over hatred, life over death. And in that choice she had found everything that truly mattered. The orc woman had chosen the human who wanted neither war nor glory, and together they had created something more valuable than any honor won in battle. They had created peace, built a family, and proven to the world that love could bridge any divide. It was, Grishka thought as sleep claimed her, the perfect ending to the best story she could have written, and the beginning of countless more, as their children and grandchildren carried forward the legacy of that first brave choice. In a world that had known too much war, they had chosen to be peacemakers. In a time of hatred, they had chosen love. And the valley, the children, the future they were building together, all stood as testament to the power of that choice. The war was over. The healing had begun. And Grishka and Owen, the orc warrior and the human farmer who had dared to imagine a better world, had found their happily ever after, not in spite of their differences, but because they had chosen to see past them to the person underneath. It was not a fairy tale ending, perfect and uncomplicated. It was something better. It was real, earned through struggle and sacrifice, made precious by the challenges overcome. It was a love story written not in grand gestures but in quiet moments, in daily choices to honor and cherish each other, in the patient work of building a life worth living. And as the years continued to unfold, as grandchildren arrived and the farm continued to prosper, as the valley grew more peaceful and integrated, Grishka and Owen remained at its heart. Not as heroes demanding recognition, but as partners showing through their example that a better world was possible. They had been caught between two feuding clans, faced with impossible choices and uncertain futures. But the orc woman had chosen the human who wanted neither war nor glory, and in that choice they had found everything worth having: love, peace, home, family, a future bright with possibility, and that in the end was the greatest victory of all.